and welcome to the student panel segment of today's GMAT Club Middle East and Africa Regional Fair. We're pleased to be joined today by Mide, a member of the University of Toronto Rotman School of Management MBA class of 2021, and Remi, a member of the Dartmouth Tuck MBA class of 2021. Thank you both for joining today.
Thank you, Greg.
My name is Guglielmo, and I'm the founder of Avanti Prep, which is an MBA admissions consulting firm and GMAT Club partner. I was many years ago a graduate of the Berkeley Haas MBA program myself. You can learn more about Avanti Prep by visiting GMAT Club or avantiprep.com, where we welcome you to sign up for a free consultation. I will be moderating today's session with Mide and Remi. And we have a little less than an hour here. So we'll start with a handful of questions for Mide and Remi that I'll ask. We'd love to hear both of your perspectives on those. And then, we'll leave some time toward the end for some comments or some questions, rather, that we could take from the crowd. So I joked a few minutes ago when we were offline, I don't want to bring back bad memories from interviews where the classic opening question is so often, tell me about yourself or walk me through your resume. But we'll have to do a little bit of that here just to familiarize folks out there with your backgrounds. So can you guys tell us a little bit more about yourselves and your journey to an MBA? Where were you living and working beforehand, or what was that trajectory like? What inspired you to pursue an MBA, and what you're focused on as far as your post-MBA goals are concerned? And we could start with Mide first. Sorry to put you on the spot. Remi's going to have a few minutes to think about it. But Mide, we can start with you.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. It's really good. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm representing Rotman. About myself, my name is Olumide Folorunso, and I used to live in Nigeria. I left Nigeria in 2015. I have an undergraduate degree from Nigeria in urban and regional planning, and I moved to Canada to get a master's in environmental sustainability. This was because I was basically trying to fix the environment. I had coming from a country where it's very oil exploration intensive. I wanted to look for a way to use the business to kind of like work for the environment, and that was what moved me to Canada. So I moved to Canada, got my master's in environmental sustainability, and right after I joined the Bank of Montreal. With the Bank of Montreal, I was working with the change management team, and what we're trying to do was try to digitize most of their processes. So as much as it wasn't towards the goal that I was looking for, I also felt like I was doing something towards the environment because it was helping to reduce the carbon footprint of the bank. So it was something that I felt was leading me to where I was going to. One thing I realized from that experience was the fact that as much as I had the science and the policy background of working within the environment, I really didn't understand the numbers. And for you to understand the numbers, for you to be at the table, be at the decision table, you had to understand the numbers. And that was what moved me to getting an MBA. At this point, I was already living in Toronto, and I had a couple of schools that I was considering. I wasn't considering any schools outside Canada, but most of the schools I was considering were within Canada. So it was Toronto, McGill in Montreal, so Rotman in Toronto, McGill in Montreal, and I think Schulich, I think that was the third one I considered. Toronto, it was really easy for me to select Rotman after I started the process because, first of all, it required me not moving. Second of all, it's right in the center of the city. So the campus is right downtown. You're close to everything. The businesses, you're like 10 minutes or 20 minutes walk away from the financial district, and that was really easy for me to select. When I got to Rotman, the focus that I was looking into was consulting, and that was because I wanted an industry where I felt like I was going to learn more. I was going to be able to take the environmental piece that I already had and put it with knowledge of like the business of different industries. So I tried my hands out at consulting. So I interned with Deloitte over the summer. During the internship, it was a really good experience for me. I got the opportunity to work on a couple of projects. It helped me to improve my interpersonal skills and things like that. Unfortunately, it was remote, so everything happened from home, which I felt like was a disadvantage to me because I didn't get to meet as many people as I wanted to, or as many people I felt I would have been able to meet if it was in person. During that time, as well, I started to understand that consulting was not exactly for me, and I wanted to do something in I decided I wanted to do something in operations. And so afterwards, I started to apply towards roles in operations, just understanding how, especially because operations is a huge part of sustainability. So I wanted to get like an experience there. So right now, I have a full-time offer for next year in operations, and I'm looking forward to that. That's just a little about myself.
Great. Thank you for that. And we appreciate to hearing about that. And hopefully it sparks some questions among the crowd. You mentioned Mide having a previous master's degree. So if anybody else out there has a question about that, we could touch on some of these things. But we'll pass it to Remi for an introduction as well.
Thank you, Greg. I think for me, before I came to talk, I was working in Ghana. I was working with Nestle. So I had about 6 years experience with Nestle. I started from Nestle Nigeria, and I was leading digital marketing for Nestle Nigeria. I think in my third year with Nestle, I was moved to the Switzerland office, which is where the headquarters is. And I was part of a team called the Digital Acceleration Team. It was a leadership program, but at the same time, you also have access to different Nestle offices, helping them solve, big problems that they had around digital marketing. And I think at that point, it was a job that I really enjoyed, because it was really primarily about problem solving and also just a lot of interpersonal relationship. But my time in Switzerland was already fixed. I was going to spend about 8 to 9 months there, and then I was going to go back, to Nestle's headquarters in Sub-Saharan Africa. But I knew at that point that if I continued with Nestle, I was already being pigeonholed into that digital space. And for me, there are 3 goals that I've always had in my life. One was that I wanted to build companies. The second one was that I wanted to build people. And the third one was I wanted to build things. And I felt that within Nestle, maybe the only thing that I felt I was doing was building people. And if I needed to change my trajectory to be able to achieve these other 2 goals, it would be very hard. And it's either like my trajectory within Nestle would be delayed because I have to move to a different department. And then I'm not able to carry like the same cloud that I've had within that digital space. And this is when I realized that the MBA was like the best opportunity for me to be able to achieve this. And my own journey wasn't as easy because the first time I applied to a number of schools and I didn't get in, I got waitlisted at Darden. And then the second time, having learned a lot, I kept my school list to about 3 schools. And thankfully, like I was able to get admission into 2 of them and waitlisted in one of them. But at the time, Top was already my number 1 choice. And I'm happy to explain, some of the reasons why I chose Stock, of course, in some of the questions later. But now, over the summer, I went to work at American Express. They have an internal consulting team. And primarily what drove that was that, first of all, like I was able to have access, to big problems that, a place like American Express is solving. But most importantly, because fintech is one of the industries that is blowing up in Africa. And for me, like the long-term goal also is to go back to the continent and, be a part of that, growth. And that is why like I chose American Express, and I was able to really get, my hands dirty over the summer. I'll be going back to American Express next year, and it's a role that I'm looking forward to, and I'm happy to also chat more around how I decided, on American Express as well.
Great, appreciate that, and congratulations to you both on securing those positions. Looking forward, it takes, I imagine, a lot of pressure off during the second year. And as a lot of people out there may or may not be aware, a lot of times those summer internships or the recruiting processes that you go through during first year, if you like where you land in that summer internship and you do a good job and they like you, it can turn into these full-time offers. That is, of course, a big reason why people target MBA programs. Just a couple of things to highlight there. For the crowd, I would call out for Mide and Remi both. You can kind of tell for those watching the level of thought, introspection, and specificity that went into. I know they're in the programs now, so they've probably well practiced on this over the last few years and when they went through the application and interview process. But the levels of thought, introspection, and specificity, both personal and professional, about what they were seeking and why they needed an MBA. Both the specifics of the goals, like the practical specifics, where do I want to work, what industry, what kind of companies, what kind of roles, but also the underlying reasons for that, the passion and purpose and motivations behind it. So I think that specificity is worth highlighting. I'd also highlight too, for people out there thinking about their own experiences and stuff, Mide, you worked at a variety of different companies. You had, perhaps that underlying sustainability focus that carried through in a variety of ways, but worked at a variety of places over the years. Remi, you had, I think it was 6 years you mentioned at Nestle, starting in Nigeria, then going to Europe, then to Ghana. So we have here, I think, kind of a classic and representative situation, or two different profiles. One applicant or one individual worked at a few different places. The other had experience at one place. There's no right or wrong to that. That is unique to oneself. And I think as an applicant, you want to think about what is the value that you obtained through each of those, whatever your path was. Was it different places and the diversity of experiences? Was it depth and leadership and impact at one place and progression at one place, perhaps in multiple geographies? So it's great to hear all of that. Quickly, Remi, you mentioned having applied beforehand and then being a reapplicant. What were some things you felt like you didn't go your way the first time? Things you wish you would have done better, things you weren't aware of? Can you comment a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. I think there are a number of things that didn't go well the first time. I think first was this school research itself. I think I applied to about 5 schools, and I think my assumption at the time was that most of these schools were the same, and that was something that I realized too late. Like I didn't tailor like my application to these schools in a way that shows that I actually know so much about the school. I think the second one is also just interaction with the community. I didn't really reach out to either like the admissions team or reach out to the students or reach out to the alums. I felt like the experience that I had and the impact that I had made within my career was going to really carry me, through, the entire journey. And I think the last piece also was, also not being clear about what I wanted to use the MBA for after I was done. And I think that really showed because I had this, what I would call very existential like ambition. Like I wanted to change the world, but I didn't really specify how I wanted to, bring about that change. And I think those 3 things were things that I, after I had gotten off the wait list, when I didn't convert the wait list into an admission at that end, I think that was one of the feedback that I had received. And I also reached out to a couple of other schools that I applied to, just try and understand, what the challenges were and how best can I improve my application. So going into the second year, when I was trying to apply again, these were key things that I had already learned. And first of all, like I made sure I streamlined my application the second time. Instead of applying to 5, schools in first round, I applied to just 3 schools. And the second piece that I did was that I was very clear on what I wanted to use the MBA for. And the last piece was that I just reached out to as many people. I think in one of the schools, I think maybe I spoke to about 15 people, which when I got into talk, I realized that was not even, compared to some other numbers that people were, but obviously like it also depends on the type of, the quality of the conversation that you were having with people. Some people will reach out to 3 to 5 people, and those conversations would be much more impactful than just, speaking to more than 10 to 15. So the focus is not on the number, but it's more about just interacting with the community and letting people know that this is a school that you definitely want to come to.
Absolutely. I think those are key takeaways that I would just highlight to the end of the earth for applicants sitting out there. A lot of people, when you're first getting to know the MBA application process, you might think as would not be uncommon for somebody entering it or first encountering to say, okay, you know what? I've got a nice resume. I've worked at a great company. I don't necessarily need to take these steps, or you're not even maybe aware that you're supposed to, or that it helps to do so. So really to hit that nail on the head, Remi, I think it's super important, as you highlighted, school research and engagement, really getting to know programs, connecting with them. If for folks who have joined us in a couple of the previous sessions today, you heard from some admissions, Tuck admissions and Rotman admissions about some of the ways you could do that. We'll cover some more here. So school research and engagement and specificity of goals. Remi just mentioned some of those first goals were very abstract, existential, I'm going to save the world type stuff. There could be some underlying themes of that maybe built in, but we really want to know specifically, what are you going to use the MBA for? So school research and engagement and specificity of goals, specificity of plan, I think great things to highlight. Mide, I don't think you were a reapplicant, if I have that right.
No, I wasn't. But just
Yeah.
pushing forward what Remi said, I was fortunate that my sister had done it once, so she went to Duke, Fuqua, I think, and because of that, I just took the experience that she had and I channeled it into what I was doing. So that really helped. So the things that Remi had to learn the second time, I already had somebody telling me to do. So you kind of overemphasize reaching out and making sure that people at the school know that you're very interested. That was one of the things I did with Rotman. I went to the open house. I spoke to the admissions team. I just made sure that my need or my wanting to be at Rotman was very much seen and heard, and that's really important for most people to do if you're applying to most of the schools.
Great. And I think this kind of segues into another key topic is how. What are the best ways to do that? Mide, you just mentioned some of the ways: open houses, campus visits. Your situation was maybe a little bit unique in that you were located in the same city that the school existed in. You guys were going through this during pre-COVID, back when we could still, feels like a long time ago, but we could still go to in-person events and things like that. But Mide, and then Remi will ask the same question for Tuck. What are some of the specific ways that you would encourage or suggest applicants out there watching today to go down this road of school research and engagement, of connecting with students? Like, where do they start? Who do they connect with? Who do they reach out to? What virtual events or what have you might they entertain? We can start with Mide for this one.
Okay. The first thing I think I did when I started to research about the MBA was I picked the schools I wanted, and I knew exactly what it was that I wanted. So my first criteria was the fact that I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave Canada, so I already knew I wasn't going to apply to any other schools aside schools within Canada. And when it came to that, I was very keen on the numbers. So I wanted to know what ranking each school had, and that kind of played into my decision at the end of the day. So because it's an MBA program and how important it is, the networking and how important the alumni network is for me, I also wanted a school that I was sure had a huge alumni network, because that was something that was going to be important post MBA for me. So I was looking at that even before I started to apply. So researching about that, researching about the number of the type of jobs that come out of the MBA and the type of companies that actually attend, that come to the MBA to recruit, was also important to me. Those were the things I started to look at. With regards to open houses, or with regards to reaching out, the first thing I think I did was I knew most of the schools had open houses. So that was the first thing I did. I went to the general one, and that was the one that had many of the schools. There was I think I can't remember what company it was that organized it within Toronto, but there were a bunch of schools that came to Toronto, and I went to that. After going to that, by that time I'd selected the schools I really wanted to go to, and I started to attend their individual open houses. So for, I think, McGill, I had to do that online because I wasn't going to go to Montreal. But for the one that happened in Toronto, I actually went there in person. I made sure I met the admissions committee. I met the whosoever was in charge. I wanted my name to be something that when they see my application, it would be remembered. It wouldn't be something, it wouldn't be the first time they're coming across my name. And just like Remi mentioned, one thing that I also did was making sure the conversations I was having were conversations that would be remembered. So I before I went, I'd already picked up on topics that I knew was of interest to people that were going to be there, or officials that were going to be there. So I met with them, and those topics were the type of things that I started to talk about when I spoke to them. So it had to be memorable. I feel like the MBA is one place that you always want to make sure that you're memorable at every single event. It's better for you not to be memorable if it's bad, but you want yourself to be remembered for good everywhere. And the same thing applies during recruitment. You want to make sure you're remembered for good. So it's about the research you've done beforehand. So all of that played into how I approached the application process. So even when I was completing my application, during the interviews, I had names that I could drop. So I was like, well, I spoke to this person, I'd spoken to this person. This is the reason, because of this specific, I feel like this is going to be a specific fit for me because of the conversation I had with a particular person. And it was easy to have those conversations because I already had like an arsenal of them in my bag. So I could just pull from that when I was having my interviews. And that really helped me I believe that helped me to stand out.
Amazing. I mean, I think the whole thing, if I had to, I can't summarize what you just said because every piece of it, I think, is so relevant and important for applicants out there to keep in mind. Some of that interaction, admittedly, like that would probably occur at the end of events, is going to be harder, unfortunately, in the virtual era. You know, we're not in like a big conference room on a weeknight where people could go up to admissions, but there are still ways certainly to do this through outreach and to set up conversations. And as Mide reinforced so well, do your homework, really get to know these programs, come up with interesting questions. You know, it's not like a question you pose. We don't really want that necessarily to be the first thing you should know from the, front page of the website. Do your homework, connect the dots a little bit, and those questions become memorable and your name becomes remembered a little bit, even if informally and in the mix. So that's just, I think, so important. Again, school research and engagement. Remi, we could pass it to you if you want to highlight either some of the steps you took, and this could be interesting too, whereas Mide was right there in Toronto and a much more proximately located to the programs he was interested in. You were, a continent or an ocean or a couple of continents away. How did you go about connecting with, you mentioned 15 Tuck students. How'd you go about all that? And what would you suggest as very valuable ways to connect with a school for the folks out there today?
Yeah, I think for me, the first thing that I started with was I sort of highlighted what I wanted to get from the MBA because I think that's also something that media already touched on about the type of jobs that come out of those schools. I think for me, I knew that I wanted to change career. Like I didn't want to do CPG anymore, and I didn't want to do marketing. So that was the first thing. So I knew that trying to getting a great job out of that MBA program is super important. But the other thing, which is also very important for me, was the quality of education. And the reason why I'm speaking to this is that, most schools, as people will tell you, they teach the same thing, accounting, marketing, operations, and all of that. But where the difference then comes in is in how these instructions are delivered. Some schools are more case-based, some are more instructor-led. And I think just trying to highlight this objective then helped me streamline the schools I wanted to go look at. And one thing I did, which I always tell people, but all the 3 schools that I applied to, I think I read everything on the website because for me, I didn't want to get any surprises. And I wanted that this a situation whereby for every person that I meet, I wanted new information. I didn't want something that was either marketing speak or something that would be repeating the same thing that I could have found out on my own. So I wanted the conversation to sort of go to the next level. And I think there was a bit of, I would say, luck because the second thing I did was that I then followed all the schools on their Instagram page because I felt that on Twitter, there's a part that it would show you, and on Instagram, there's a part that the school will show you, and then you're able to also maybe see the school hashtags and go check the hashtags and see some of these other pictures that the school can't control. So from students, and then you're able to understand the culture of the school. And what had happened was that there was someone, a Nigerian person that was going to work at Nestle, post MBA at Talk, who had been posted, his picture or his story had been posted on the Talk's Instagram. And the next day I just went to work. I just sent this person a message that, oh, I'm trying to come to this school. I currently work at Nestle, but I'm in Ghana. And the guy was a bit surprised. This is a Nigerian going to Nestle that went to the same school. And that was the initial, the first conversation I had with someone at Talk. And this guy was pretty upfront with me, letting me know, key people that I should reach out to, and just going on LinkedIn and reaching out to people that I shouldn't really care. It's either they reply to me or they don't. And that was how I started. And I would just send people messages on LinkedIn. I reached out to the admissions team. And what then happened was that even for these other schools, by the time I was speaking to them, the type of questions that I was asking were questions that were a bit, like two steps higher than they normally would receive. And a situation that happened, I remember like during my talk interview, there was something I had mentioned of why I wanted to come to talk. And even my interviewer didn't even know that that thing existed at talk. you know,
Yeah.
which, for her was a bit interesting because it showed the level, like I wasn't just repeating the same thing that every candidate was repeating. I was repeating something, that has gone to the next level because I had this opportunity to have reached out to people. I had gone through like at the website. I understood like the culture from the perspective of the student, even without speaking to them, because I just knew the type of things that they do, the type of social activities that they do,
Mhm.
and um, those are some of the examples that I will share at this point.
Amazing. I think we have like you guys. I wish I could. I mean, I guess it is being recorded and it's going to go on YouTube because I think you guys are encapsulating like some of the deepest and most creative kind of ways and most thoughtful kind of ways to go about school research and engagement. And again, not to sound like a broken record for the applicants out there watching today, it's so important to immerse yourselves in what each school offers and what it stands for and what the community is like. I know when I work with applicants, when we at Avanti Prep work with applicants, beyond some of the planning factors, school selection and story and career goal development and essay brainstorming and recommender selection and recommendation strategy. Once we've done a lot of the planning, we like to talk about 4 work streams within the application process to organize what can otherwise be a very intimidating and diverse set of things. And there's essays, there's resume, there's recommendations, and we do highlight as a 4th pillar, as a work stream unto itself, alongside all those others, school research and engagement. And Remi and Mide, I think, reinforced that today and showed how to do it masterfully, I would say. So again, for people out there who heard some of the earlier talks today, I'll just reinforce it because Felicia from Tuck Admissions and Danielle from Rotman Admissions, they highlighted some ways. But please go to schools' websites, learn about the schools, learn about the offerings as well as the culture, the community, the values. You'll often find for various schools student ambassadors, student region representatives. Many schools have admissions contacts who are perhaps designated to a certain geography. Danielle, I believe at Rotman, covers the Middle East, and there's a counterpart who covers Africa. Felicia said, basically, email me. If you want to chat, email me. It's like open door. So do it with admissions, do it with students. If there are clubs, geographic clubs, industry clubs that you're interested in, have a targeted approach. It might not need to be 15 people, like Remi said, but definitely that level of engagement. Follow the hashtags, virtual classes, virtual events. This is all great stuff. The one disclaimer, caveat I would throw in there too for the folks out there, be respectful of people's time. Of course, when you send that first email, you don't want to have a big, you don't want to have a 500-word email. It's probably just 3 or 4 sentences, and there's a certain art to that. You want to be respectful of people's time. You want to be polite. You want to, if you do have the opportunity to get them on the phone, to have the interesting and thoughtful questions that Mide and Remi highlighted here today. So I think great stuff to cover. You guys both in these answers have highlighted various things about your respective programs that appealed to you and what you were looking for in programs. So you've hit a little bit of that already, but just to give that some reinforcement or some coverage here, we'll go back to Mide. What would you say it was about Rotman, or now that you're there, what would you say it is about Rotman that really stands out to you as making the program unique?
The one thing that comes to mind right now, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why I chose Rotman, was the people. So fortunately, Danielle was the person I spoke to when I was trying to get into Rotman, and the one thing that she said, being a person of color, it was important to me that whatever school it was that I was going to had a representation of people of color. Like I always wanted to feel that fit. I didn't want to be the token person or something like that, but I wanted to make sure that it was a community. So it wasn't just a particular set of people. And when I went to the open house, I remember seeing a bunch of it was everybody, people from Asia, people from Europe, people from Canada. It was all colors, and that was the one thing that I was looking for that was really important to me. So selecting Rotman was because of that, because of the number of people that I knew that I could get in touch with, the alumni network that was also quite diverse, very diverse to be honest, was one of the important reasons that stood out for me at selecting Rotman. That I feel just thinking out of my head right now, that's what I remember about it was the people and the quality of diversity that I was going to get out of Rotman.
Excellent. And Remi, what was it about Tuck that most appealed to you? You alluded earlier to a couple of characteristics, but if you had to reinforce or summarize, or I'm sure there are many, what was it about Tuck, or what is it about Tuck that really drew you there?
Yeah, so I remember like the first day that I'd gone to like the talk website. Two things that stood out to me was how talk was described, which is it's your base camp to the world. And for me, that was pretty important because the past 6 years, prior to like me applying for the MBA, like I'd worked in cities. I was in Lagos, and if anybody knows anything about Lagos, it's a bit it's an interesting city. And I remember when I was in Switzerland, for me, the most growth I've ever had in my life, at the time, happened in Switzerland. And where Nestle's HQ is in a sleepy town called Veve, very quiet, beside the lake, and a lot of skiing, a lot of hiking. And I enjoyed my time there so much that I told myself, if I have this opportunity to do this again, I would definitely take it. And while like Hanover is not as is not a sleepy town compared to like Veve, it has like that much the college itself. So it's a very bubbly town. But I knew I wanted to go to a place where I wouldn't have all of the what I call like the distractions of the city, and but at the same time still have the opportunity to be able to interact with people in a way that drives knowledge, that drives maximum interaction, and that drives this connection that people build the MBA as because you are developing your network. And for me, that base camp where I can come and learn as much as I want, but at the same time also developing these lifelong relationships with people because of this on-campus environment that Talk has built. Like I think aside from two other schools in the US, there is no other school that has the type of facilities that allows people to be on campus currently when it comes to the MBA program. And that was something that really was attractive to me. And also so many other things, going back, like Talk, the academic rigor at Talk. For me, I have the opportunity to also speak to some other friends, and I feel that some MBA programs optimize for people getting jobs versus learning the skills that will make them succeed at the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at Talk sees it as a false equivalent. You can get this great job, but at the same time, deepen and develop that skill set that would make you succeed at the job. Because what I tell people is that what is the benefit of getting a job that after 1 year, people will see that this guy, like, he talked a good game during the interview, but when it's now time to deliver, you can't deliver. And, these are some of the things that drove me, to come to Talk. And if you are talking about alums, Talk alums are out of this world. And, the fact that you can send someone an email, even as a prospective student, or just like a quick chat on LinkedIn, and they reply as soon as they can, for me, that is super amazing. And I'm sure like there are rankings and statistics that already collaborates the fact that our alums are the most engaged in the world. And that is something that is also like was an attractive value prop for me when I was coming here.
Great. So again, there, to reinforce going through the process of introspection, of reflection on one's oneself and one's goals and one's interests, and then learning about the schools, that's what highlights these things, and that's what helps you kind of determine where am I a good fit and how can I articulate that fit. Let's see if we have any questions from the crowd. If GMAT Club wants to serve those up. If not, I have certainly other questions we could cover here. So we have a question for Remi. How was integration into a global field? What barriers did you have to overcome? How did an MBA enable you to overcome those barriers? Do we have integration into a global field? Are you good with the question? Do you need a little more clarity, or?
I'm not sure I understand what the person meant by global field.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. And, I would say too, and maybe we'll get a different question coming. Remi, you had pretty global experience going in through Nestle, by working, in Nigeria and then Switzerland and then Ghana. I was of the impression, I'd say, hey, you had the global experience going in. You weren't trying to break into a global experience after MBA. You also had very global experience. But let's see if we can get another question. And apologies if we misinterpreted that one. How can I find the current MBA program students at Rotman so that I can have a chat with them? So I guess a little bit more of a specific question. Mide, how might a prospective student reach out and engage with to have some of these chats that we've been talking about?
So I'll say the first way is through the Rotman website, and under the Rotman website, there's something called speaking to a Rotman ambassador, I believe. That's one way that you can reach out. So through that, when you feel that in, they connect you with somebody that you can speak to. Another thing you can do is through LinkedIn. I feel like that's for every school. So if you type in Rotman, you'll see a bunch of people that come that get populated. The one thing that you can do is look for somebody that is in the industry you're looking to go into, or someone that has a similar experience as yourself, because that way, whatever information you get is very targeted towards you and can really help you. So LinkedIn is a good place, but Rotman website also has how they can connect you to ambassadors within Rotman. Super.
And yeah, I know ambassadors, you might end up chatting directly with them, or sometimes they could even put you in touch with a student from a certain geography or a certain industry. Other options that come to mind for me too, when I think about clubs, and I know Felicia Swoop from Tuck Admissions earlier mentioned reaching out to affinity groups and professional clubs. So in addition to all of the great ways Mide just mentioned, some schools, some more than others, by the way, you'll encounter different interfaces and different things like that from school to school. But if somebody's interested in energy or consulting or investment banking, whatever the industry there's almost always a club at the school. And oftentimes there are ways through the club portal or club email addresses to connect. Those same thing for geographic clubs or cultural clubs that represent certain regions or continents as well. We could take another question if we have one teed up. How can I find the current? Oh, that was the one we just got. Does Tuck advertise the amount of average scholarships like some other schools do? I'm interested to find out what percentage of students got scholarships and how much on average. I've not found that on their website. Remi, do you happen to know if they do that?
Honestly, I don't know what's on the website anymore. But I think what I can speak to is that number one, I know like our dean mentioned to us at the start of the pandemic that they are doubling. I think they are increasing. Yeah, they are doubling the scholarship money. Yeah. Because for him, I think one of the challenges that they've seen is this whole countries are becoming nationalistic, and there's a lot of protectionism going on, and he had spoken to that, but also saying that for him, he believes that the mission of the Tuck School is even much more important, which is, to build wise and decisive leaders that better the world of business. Mm-hmm. And he feels that, for us to be able to attract the best, we have to really, increase the scholarship money. So there's no better time to apply to Tuck right now than now. That's the first thing. The second thing is, much more anecdotal. Like for me, when I was coming to Tuck, I got a sizable amount of scholarship. And when I've spoken to my friends and, especially depending on, people coming from Africa and, Middle East, those are places that talk is even trying to target now, because for them, if you want to better the world of business, it's not a specific type of people that would do that, and now they're trying to bring as many, people with diverse experiences, more, from even outside of the US at this point in time. So if you have had experience working outside of the US or you've lived outside of the US, I think there's no better time for you than now to apply to top.
Great. Yeah, and I think this begs this kind of segues into a very, very interesting and important topic, which is financing and scholarships and the like. To the specific question too, and Remi, I'm sorry if I put you on the spot there with what's on the website these days. I'm not familiar with too many schools publishing this exact statistic, formally publishing or officially publishing this exact statistic around percentage of students, at least, among North American programs like we're dealing with today. But I do think it still highlights a very important, the question is still a great one in that it scratches at scholarships, financing, and obviously there's a big cost associated with attending MBA programs. Remi just mentioned scholarships, and I'll put the question to Mide and Remi. You don't have to go into your own personal finances and things like that, but what are some things that you found amongst your peers that steps people took to navigate financing options, to apply for or even negotiate scholarships in order to, or anything else to help offset the cost of the MBA? We just heard a little from Remi. We'll come back to you in a moment. But Mide, was there anything you would highlight for the folks out there today?
So the scholarships are very important. I was fortunate to also get a scholarship, and the good thing about it was it came with the offer of admission. So it wasn't something I exactly had to work for, but I also feel that so it really helped me. Also being a PR, having a PR in Canada really helped because it was I got the opportunity to get grants from the government and also a loan from the government. The third thing that I think I did was also get a line of credit because it was because of how much it is. Sometimes it's a bit too much for one person to take on, but the truth is the benefits you get afterwards definitely outweigh the finances that you put into it. So yes, I know there are a bunch of loans that you can get if you're thinking about the MBA, even if you're an international student. It's I have many people in my class that came from directly from Nigeria, and they have loans that they got from, I can't remember what loan companies, but they're loan companies that actually look out for MBA students and are very willing to offer loans to MBA students. It's so the one thing I always tell people about the MBA is don't think about the finances beforehand, because to be honest, it'll be paid for. The MBA pays for itself. But think about getting in and getting exactly the experience you want. The finances, to be honest, once you have an offer of admission, you'll find there'll always be a way to pay for the MBA, and there are a bunch of scholarships that come. So aside the entrance scholarships that you get from getting an offer, you also have a bunch of scholarships within the MBA. Like Rotman always, I think it's almost every term. I remember there was one during the first year. So after you get in, during the first year, you have a bunch of scholarships that get published on the Rotman website. And even in the second year, you also still have other scholarships that you can apply for. So it's, at the end of the day, it's really easy to finance the MBA through scholarships and a bit through loans if you have to do that.
Great. Excellent points there about highlighting what ultimately became a variety of ways to finance, some combination of scholarships and loans. And if, depending on what country you're in, if there are public options or public financing options, and things of that nature. Remi, what was there anything you would add to that or highlight as whether through your experience or things you're familiar with from going through the process or having friends go through the process?
So I think what I would add to that is that that is also part of like the data point that you should be seeking out when you're applying. Some schools provide the opportunity, so most schools would offer you scholarship, but maybe it may not be enough to cover the entirety of your program. But then what most schools then do is that they have their own, loan application process that they've partnered with either like a loan company, that then facilitates and makes it easy for you to be able to apply for that loan. And when I mean data points, some schools don't have that facility, so you have to go and source the likes of Prodigy or I don't know the other loan companies, but a place like Talk has like a partnership with Discover that I think it only takes you maybe like 5 minutes, to apply for this loan. Whereas for some other schools who don't have that, and where you have to go and source it from private organization like Prodigy, like it takes a lot longer, and then the documentation that is required is also maybe extensive, compared to Talk where or some other schools where you just have to fill in this Excel sheet and then you'll get an approval like maybe in a couple of days or something. But I think one thing that I will also caveat that with is that for me, I think one of the biggest things that I learned after I got into school is that when you are going in, go in with the mindset that you're going to get into this school, and all you're just targeting now is how much scholarship will the school give me. Because I think for most people coming from outside of the US or international student, there's this fear that, oh, am I even qualified to even get into the school in the first place? And when the school offers you like an admission and then there's no scholarship, some people just take it like, well, I don't want to disrupt these plans anymore. Like, just in case I go and meet them, I want a scholarship, maybe they're going to take back, the admission offer away from me. And so I think what I try to tell people is that even as you are planning and as you're applying, make sure that you put your best foot forward. Because the reason why schools give scholarship in the first place is because they believe that this person has something worthy to contribute to our school, and we don't want to lose this person to a competing school.
Mm-hmm.
That is like, the scholarship itself is like a signal to you that, the school definitely wants you. Mm-hmm. But even if the school don't give you in the first place, it doesn't mean that the school, they don't want you. Some schools want you to make that case. And mm-hmm. people go there and say, this is my experience, this is what I believe I can contribute to this class, and this is why this class of 2024, 2023 will benefit by virtue of my presence in that school. Yeah. So I think for me, just make sure that as you're planning, you already know that you're going to get into this school, and all you're just thinking is, what's the percentage of scholarship that I'm going to get from there? And then that can then inspire you to put so much effort into preparing for the GMAT, in writing like a stellar application essay, and then also interviewing, giving your best shot at the interview as well.
Great. And I'll just hammer home some of these, again, fantastic points. In addition to the loans and some of those kind of financing options, Mide and Remi both highlighted basically the fact that like the quality of your application matters. There are scholarships. Most schools will automatically review you for scholarships as part of just applying. That's how Mide got his. He didn't have to go through extra applications or extra scholarship applications. So first and foremost, the quality of your application matters from the outset. It's not only, as Remi was just mentioning, it's not only about getting in. An excellent job with the application and the school research and articulation of what you can uniquely bring to a program increases your probability not only to get in, but also to get one of those initial offers just by merit of your application quality and how you did through that process. Sometimes you have to check like a little box in the application that says, "Would you like to be reviewed for merit scholarships?" And I don't know anyone who would put no. You put yes to that one. So for the automatic reviews, quality of application matters. Be sure also though to check for one-off scholarships. So these are the ones where you would have to separately apply, but you should go to schools' financial aid pages and take a look there. There are going to be other scholarships. Sometimes they require like one extra essay. Sometimes will be like geographic specific or professional specific. So definitely take a look at the one-offs as well. And then finally, negotiate. Like Remi was alluding to there at the end. Not every school negotiates. And do so, if you do so very politely and professionally, and really make a case for why you will add value or unique value. So if you do get that first offer and there's no scholarship or very low scholarship attached to it, you can. It is normal. It is part of it. Not every school does it, but in many cases you can try to negotiate that upward. It helps if you have other offers from other schools. Please don't treat it like a hard ball. You are not going to be penalized if you do it, but you should do it politely, professionally, respectfully, make that case. So I think very, very valuable things to highlight here. We're coming up on time here, so let's just, I don't want to make this sound like too much like a talk show or something, but give each of the guys 1 minute maybe to just close out with, one thing, if you could share one thing with current applicants or one last thing with current applicants, what would it be in a minute or so? We could go to Mide first. I'm sorry to put you on the spot with that.
That's all right. One thing. Well, I would say, so just speaking based on this year, 2020 has been quite difficult for most people. But the one thing that I've said is 2020 has been good to me, and that one of the reasons that is because I'm at Rotman. I I don't have, first of all, I don't have to worry about a job after the MBA because I already have a job. And while most people are going through the fear of we don't know what the future holds, I'm getting like an added education to myself, and that really helps me to feel good about 2020. So if I was going to say one thing, it would be, I know it's a difficult time. I know most people are thinking, is it what getting into right now? The truth is, yes, now is actually the time for you to, if you're making a decision about the MBA, now is the time to do it, because by the time you're done, most companies are going to be seeking professionals like yourself. So you can't go wrong with doing the MBA right now.
Excellent. Appreciate that. And I think speaks to some of the timing too associated with COVID. For folks who are applying right now, you enter next year, it's 2 years later when you graduate. Obviously fingers crossed for the world that we're out of the COVID time and things are moving back forward. And as Mide just highlighted, hopefully the recruitment will be heavy as companies seek to fill. Also an element in there, if I may, of making lemonade out of lemons, as the old cliche goes. Tough year, and everyone's situation is different, and we certainly appreciate that. But an encouragement to stay positive and dig in on these goals for people out there, and try to take those next steps and make those next dreams or career ambitions a reality. Remi, if you had to leave the folks out there with one last thought, current applicants with one last thought, what would it be?
I think what I would say, to everyone, who is here right now is the MBA is one of the best experiences that you can ever go through, in life. And I say that because, oftentimes, people tend to view MBAs in a certain way in some certain industries. And I also say that because, people just talk about like Masters of Business Administration. But that business administration, when you're getting, it goes beyond that. Just being, for me at Talk, I've, taken courses on public policy. I'm taking a course of climate change. I'm taking a course on, the impact of socialism on the society, and all these various things that ideally when you're outside, you probably don't see it, because everything that they talk about the MBA is from strategy, marketing, corporate finance, accounting. Those are like the courses that you hear, but there are all these adjacent courses that also makes you a better human being. It's not just a better business person, it makes you a better human being. And if you're still on the sidelines thinking, oh, is this the right journey for me? I would say that you should get into it. It's a journey that would pay off for a lifetime. And just be calm, be confident, everything is going to go well.
Great. We appreciate these closing thoughts. I do see one interesting question here, not to go too much over time, but just because a couple of people asked it about individuals from non-business backgrounds adapting into MBA programs. I'm sure you have peers, perhaps, and many classmates. I know that even if we looked at the statistics, let's say some schools have upward of 10% of people who might come from the public sector, or a lot of US programs have 5%, and some schools even closer to 10% of individuals coming from like a military background even. What would you guys say, I guess as a final add-on question here, just because I saw it come up a couple times, how do people, is it hard for people who come from non-business backgrounds to adapt? How do they go about doing so? If either of you want to jump in on that.
Okay, so I could go first with that. And I'll just speak based on my experience. I have a bachelor's in urban and regional planning. I have a master's in environmental sustainability, and none of those times did I take any course in business. So it was new to me. A lot of the courses were new to me. However, the one thing that I realized is being in a class of so many other people, everybody is willing to help, and because of that, it makes the journey easier, and you start to realize that you're not the only one. There are people in my class that are in my class right now that are musicians and all that. So it's people from different backgrounds, and the willingness of people to help is very important. So you have second years that are willing to help. The school as well, Rotman, I don't know about other schools, but Rotman has scholars that are there to help you if you find a particular topic or particular subject difficult. Rotman has a bunch of resources out there to help you. Your classmates are there to help you. Usually there's always somebody that, well, a bunch of people that finished with finance or banking or something. And all of that really helps to make the process easier. And when it comes to recruiting, just to add on to that, recruiting, one thing I realized is a lot of recruiters look for people with a variety of experience. So the fact that you don't have a business experience doesn't mean you wouldn't be considered for certain jobs. As long as they feel that your experience is going to contribute to the goal of the company, you're top on mind a lot of times. Like I never thought I was going to be considered for consulting, but it was really, I don't want to say easy, but it was something that came relatively easy compared to other things. And consulting is one of those types of jobs that everybody wants.
Great. And I think we do, Remi, I'm sorry to cut you off here. I'm just observing here that I think we do need to wrap up because there's another call starting in a few minutes. So Mide, we appreciate hearing that and highlighting how people who come from non-business backgrounds do make that transition and successfully make that transition into MBA programs, and then through the various resources and their peers and their support groups that they're surrounded with are able to navigate that transition. So we appreciate everyone's time today. In particular, we appreciate Remi and Mide for coming here to represent Rotman and share their thoughts, share their experiences. Thank you both. I thank you personally as a as the founder of Avanti Prep and a GMAT Club partner. Thank you all for joining. As it says there up on the screen, you can learn more about Avanti Prep by visiting avantiprep.com. We invite you to sign up for a free consultation. Hope to have the chance to chat. Thank you again, Remi and Mide, and we hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend ahead.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.